Hi Dylan, how are you?
Good, thanks, Olga. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. As a previous commercial litigation lawyer, some would say a reformed litigator, it's so nice to talk to another lawyer today. But you're in a bit of a different space, the family law space. And as we know, there's so many intersections with different things that go on in people's lives and what happens with tax debt and different forms of debt. So thanks for coming today. Can you tell us a bit about who you are and what you do and what you specialise in?
Yeah, of course. My name's Dylan Burch, and I'm a principal at Aken Partners. Aken Partners is a law firm in Melbourne, and now we've opened an office in Brisbane as well. Personally, I've been a family lawyer for about the last 15 years. Only ever really acted in family law since I came to the law in 2011. And yeah, sort of fell into family law and absolutely loved it because it sort of has that personal element of dealing with people and helping individuals through what is a really bloody difficult time in their lives. And obviously, yeah, making sure helping them out the other side and on with their life to hopefully a better pathway forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we talk to a lot of people that are in strife and have tax debt, there's often a layer of embarrassment or a layer of shame. And I often get asked all the time, aren't you just helping dodgy people avoid tax? But the reality is 99.9% of the time, something has happened behind the scenes. Something has gone on that has led to this debt, that's led to circumstances that were outside of their control. And one of those things that we're seeing an increase of, which I think you would probably agree, is huge family law issues. And that the debt is actually a result of turmoil or things that were going on in their lives and stresses. Do you sort of want to explain some of the things, I suppose, not just the legal side, but the emotional side when people are going through a family law dispute and how that can often affect running the business and affect a debt position, and how that all works together?
Well, I think the starting point, one of the words you mentioned was embarrassment. And that's the
Mm.
same with when a lot of clients come to see me for the first time. It is they are embarrassed. They're going through what is a really, really difficult time in their lives. So obviously the first starting point is just for people to understand that it isn't embarrassing. These things happen to so many
Yeah.
people. And like you say, 99% of the time, it isn't any nefarious reason as to why something has happened. Certainly, as we see in society at the moment, things are bloody tough for everybody. Cost of living, everything like that. I mean, I've got a young family myself, so I know how hard it is raising kids as well, on top of it, all the other pressures we've got in our lives at the moment. So that is certainly affecting both people's mental health, well-being, all of those things that I'm seeing flow through to family law side of things. But obviously in that as well is then the stress and the added costs of running businesses, of personal finances, where people are just struggling to stay afloat at the moment. I'm seeing a lot of matters, family law matters at the moment involving businesses which have either collapsed or are collapsing at the moment due to financial constraints. And these aren't people, as you say, who are trying to rip off the system or anything like that. They're people who are just trying to keep their doors open and really provide for their family. And that ongoing stress is leading to, and we're seeing a lot more actually, unfortunately, at the moment, inquiry with respect to separations and divorces because, yeah, people are just really, really struggling to keep their businesses afloat. And obviously, that added stress takes a toll on people's marriages and their well-being. And yeah, in those sort of circumstances, when they do come to see us at those initial stages, it is so important to get that appropriate advice on tax debt and general debt as well to make sure that it's properly treated for in any separation and what can be avoided is avoided. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We often talk about specialists, and I'm a real believer in you do need a group of people. You need a whole heap of tools around you, and it's not one size fits all, or you don't have a generalist lawyer. You deal with family law all
Mm.
day, every day, and nothing else for the last 15
Yeah.
years, I think you said. And same for us. We just deal with the tax debt piece. And I often hear that people are watching this in the middle of the night or when they're going for a run early in the morning, and they just don't know the first step of where to reach out. And a lot of the time, we see clients that have come to us. They've already been through the legal process, and they've got to the point of a financial separation, which I'll get you to describe in a sec. And then once they've got the agreement on the financial separation, as a result of that, they've discovered a huge, or they've still got a massive tax debt that they don't know what to do with. And then that's included in the debt position. And we get asked to come in and help at that point to get them a payment plan, to stop the ATO taking action or get rid of the interest. Can you
Mm.
sort of describe, I suppose, briefly how you even get to the steps of a financial agreement and how a tax debt can really affect the position if it's not dealt with, if it's non-compliant, or if there's still a huge amount of interest and penalties?
Yeah, absolutely. If everybody gets together and actually works together in an amicable fashion to try and resolve the matter from the outset, that is the best result for clients, for lawyers as well, because we can actually help people through those situations sensibly and pragmatically, where you can then look at debt and tax and all of those things holistically with the overall property pool. So obviously getting back to the main point of your question was, when people go through a financial separation, all of their assets are taken into account. That is both good assets, houses, cars, all of those sort of positive things, but as well as all their liabilities. And if they have businesses as well, their businesses are obviously taken into account, and obviously any debt or tax associated with those businesses as well. And then you get an overall usual net position of the asset pool, and then that's what's available for division between the parties, okay? So when you're looking at that global pool, you have everything in there, from the equity in the house to bank accounts to shares to all of those sort of things. And then obviously you include in that as well all the liabilities of the parties. So the mortgages, if there are outstanding tax debts, if there are other sort of liabilities in there as well. So that is really the opportunity at that stage, before a deal has actually been crystallised, for everybody to work together to get people like yourself involved, Olga, to try and maximise that property pool. It's always so important that when people do go through a separation, they keep as much money in their pocket as humanly possible. Obviously, separation is expensive, whether it's lawyers, whether it's paying for valuations, whether it's paying for everything else. If people can seek advantage through obviously maximising their financial position, they'd be mad not to. It really is such an important opportunity for people to maximise that pool. So the available division between the two of them as well. So they're both coming out winners from that situation.
And we've previously been working on a case together where you were able to sort of put a pause, or not necessarily halt proceedings, but so you can get specialists involved to help maximise that. Can you sort of explain further what we were working on there?
Yeah, absolutely. So in those situations where you are involved in pre-court proceedings, for example, where there isn't an impending trial or anything like that, that's the best opportunity for people to actually resolve things amicably, sensibly, make sure, as I say, they maintain as much cash as possible in their own pockets. And that's obviously where we get Tax Assure involved, is to make sure that those clients at that stage can say, okay, we need proper specialist advice now. Everybody stop, let's go get that advice. Let's see how we can maximise this property pool as best possible, and then we look at the division after that. Because really the most important thing for me as a lawyer is that crystallised final property pool. So that's the actual assets, the net assets available for division between the parties in a proceeding. So that's what I really look at, to make sure we can make that net number as big as possible, so that the parties can walk away with as much cash in their own pocket as possible, and really just to be able to set them up for the next step in their lives.
Often when we're engaged in those circumstances, not always is it amicable, but we find both sets of family lawyers and both sides are usually very welcoming of us, because if we can stop further action and we can reduce the debt, as exactly what you said, it helps the pool for everybody involved. If someone starts amicably, but then it all doesn't go quite to plan, are you still able to jump in at that point? Is there a too late point for you?
No, absolutely not. I think the most important advice for anybody is that until they obviously do sign off on final orders, things can be done. Things can be paused if necessary, even if there are court proceedings coming up. The court does take a strong view that people are sometimes better off solving these things themselves and getting the best advice possible, because then it assists the court. Because if we're looking at a matter where we've got a trial coming up, we've got a business, so I'm for the non-business owner who says, oh, I've got $1 million worth of debt, and they're saying the property pool should be reduced by $1 million because of that debt. I'd go, well, hold on. Let's get some specialist advice on that. See if that million can become 700,000. See if it is a real million. See what we can actually work towards to actually see if we can maximise that pool further. It's certainly a bit more of a battle in those sort of situations where somebody is trying to amplify debt levels, so the other party doesn't get as much. But that's obviously then the job as a lawyer to obviously represent our client, to make sure that we are maximising that pool as much as possible, to make sure it's a realistic valuation and realistic net property pool that's available for division.
And we often see the other side of it. So often, I don't always talk about genders, but it's just sort of something interesting to note. We often have a lot of males come to us once a financial settlement has been sorted and once all those orders have been signed off on and the debt position wasn't taken into consideration. And now there's quite a lot of money that has to, again, I'm generalising, but needs to go to the other party. And so there's not the same level of funds. So while everyone was together, there were houses and there was cars and there was this nice net equity position. But after orders have been signed off on, say it's 70-30, money needs to be paid to the other side and there's a large debt involved, and people often come to us and don't know what to do with that debt. They don't have the same access to cash, and it's our job to buy them time. The last thing they need is more court action. I think people are exhausted after going through court. The stress of these things are so real, and the mental load of litigation is often not talked about.
Oh, absolutely. I think stress is one thing, but I think people are genuinely scared as well when they're going through that proceeding. They're scared for their personal safety, for their children's safety. I'm not talking about family violence so much. I'm talking more their financial safety as well in that circumstance where, am I going to be able to afford to keep a roof over my head? I have this looming tax debt here. I think a key takeaway from a family law perspective is, though, that if you are going through a separation, before you sign off on anything, make sure you get that specialist tax advice and make sure you see what can be done about your specific circumstance. Because, for example, I see this all the time that a party will keep a business. They don't actually look into the business properly about tax debt, about things like that. And they actually come out the other side and go, oh God, I've got all this other debt now that I don't need to, that I don't know what to do with. And if they've been more proactive about it, have been probably that word you used at the start, embarrassed to talk about it. It isn't embarrassing. I just feel like, for people to be upfront about it, to deal with it as quickly as possible, obviously helps them in a family law separation, but it also, they have more knowledge as to the outcome, which then hopefully helps with the stress and that level of, scaredness that I was sort of talking about before, as to, that financial security.
We've been talking a lot. I do a lot of different presentations, and one of the things we've been saying is knowledge is power. So often when people, both in situations of family law and in debt, feel so helpless, and it is that not knowing where to start. But when you've got someone in your corner, someone acting as your shield, that becomes your knowledge, which becomes your power, that you can sort of see a light at the end of the tunnel to get through to the other side.
Well, that's exactly right. And that's what we see with family law matters. Usually when clients come to us the first time, their mind is scattered. They are all over the place. They don't know up from down, and they really need a lot of hand-holding initially just to steer them in the right direction, say, hey, this is the process. This is how it'll work through. These are the things we need to take into account. And they leave that first meeting going, oh, okay, I feel a lot better now.
Yeah, you can see the weight off their
Absolutely.
shoulders.
It is a huge relief for them to have made that initial step to obviously come and have a chat about it. I mean, you and I are both not scary people or anything like that. We've seen it all before and twice over. I mean, it is really important. But it is one of those things, when people sit on their hands and don't deal with things, that's when these problems just get worse and worse. As we say, if we can triage things early, we can deal with them quickly and appropriately. And then they've got the whole rest of their lives where they don't have to worry about it. So, that's our whole thing.
That's why we talk about eating the frog. You got to do the thing you don't want to do. And I hear it all the time, even if we haven't even been engaged yet. I feel so much better after talking to you. I feel like there's now someone that is there to help. Sometimes I do Mythbusters, and or pub talk. One of the ones I want to ask you, because I hear this all the time, and I'm sure you would hear it a million times. You're friendly. I'm friendly. But people say, no, I need a bulldog for family law. I need someone aggressive. I need someone to go in with a sledgehammer. What's your take on that? Because when you talk to you, you're a great guy. And I know people go, no, but I need someone nasty and I need someone aggressive. Where does that fit in the world?
Can I say that the more aggressive lawyers are sometimes not necessarily the best lawyers?
I agree with that as a previous lawyer.
They hide behind aggression as a tactic. And look, sometimes you'll open a letter and you'll read it and you'll go, oh, come on, just calm down. Everybody take a deep breath. I see my role as a family lawyer is to strongly advocate for my client and their position, and especially when it's sometimes the more difficult matters involving children and family violence and things like that. There are times where you do definitely need to be stern to protect your client and make sure their best interest is taken into account, and also the children's best interest as well. So there's obviously times where, as a lawyer, you do need to be firm about things, but you don't need to be aggressive. This notion of being a bulldog is something that I think is from a yesteryear, where it isn't who we are now. Some of the best lawyers, best barristers as well, that I hear advocating in court, they are just calm, considered the whole time through. There's no yelling. There's no bounding on the table or anything like that. They actually look through a matter and actually go, this is what I need to do to help my client. There isn't any point yelling and screaming about it. Sometimes, yes, it is very, very frustrating when you're dealing with somebody else who doesn't see something the same way as you see it, but there's no point getting aggressive about it at that stage. It's, no, put forward your client's case. Make sure they're protected in what you're doing to make sure they get the best outcome possible. When I'm working with other practitioners as well who work collaboratively, we can work through things together. We actually both represent our clients firmly and sternly, but it's done in a respectful manner where you don't then tarnish the relationship between the husband and wife or the different parties at the end of it, where, especially if they've got kids, they're going to be involved in each other's lives the next 10, 12, 15 years sometimes. And you don't want them to hate each other walking away from lawyers even more than the conflict they're already involved in. So, yeah, that's my whole attitude on that. It is you represent firmly, but you do it just with a level of decorum that's appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more from my old days. And even now, I think it's about knowing your subject matter. When we go back to being a specialist, if you know the law, you know what you're dealing with. It's the same as when we often hear accountants have rung up and ripped shreds off the ATO, and it gets nowhere. The aggression doesn't help. The ATO have rules, they have policy, they have procedure. We know what they can do, we know what they can't do, and yelling and screaming at them is not going to change anything. It's the same as you knowing the law.
Yeah, and I also say with lawyers as well, like, we represent our clients. We are creatures of instructions a lot of the time. Obviously, we give our clients realistic and sensible advice at all times. But sometimes a client will want to go down a certain path where, yeah, you may not agree with it, but other lawyers get personally slighted by that. It's like, well, guys, come on. Like, we're all in this together. Yes, sometimes we have difficult clients. That's just the nature of family law. There isn't any point getting up on your high horse about it all the time, because in 2 weeks we might be against each other on another matter where you've got the difficult client on that occasion. And if you've shown me grace in the past when I've had the difficult client, it goes a long way. So that's my whole thing, is that you all work together towards an end result. Obviously, it is an adversarial system where you are competing against each other in a lot of ways. But that doesn't mean you then say hell to it and your clients are then thrown to the wolves and they get involved in this big heated match.
Yeah.
Our job is to simmer that aggression and help people actually move forward in their lives.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And people say to me, do you work for the ATO or against the ATO? Whereas we walk a fine line, we're in the middle. And the ATO like dealing with us because we're not screaming and we're not yelling. And we're trying to get a solution and an outcome for the client. The ATO is obsessed with compliance. They want everyone either in a payment plan or to have paid the debt off and to be compliant. So yelling and screaming about something that's not going to achieve that end result is just not worth it. So yes, they know about us. They know that we can help reduce debt. We get people compliant, but at the same time, if we yelled and screamed and carried on exactly what you're saying, then it wouldn't be a good outcome for anyone at all.
Well, because I actually see a lot of similarities with that with the court as well. Because a lawyer is sometimes only as good as their reputation in a lot of ways. And those lawyers who do make things overly adversarial, you just don't get a good rap for it, obviously. And I know when I pick up different matters and I see which lawyer is acting, I go, oh, great, I can pick up this phone, call this person, have a conversation, say, hey, let's work through X, Y, and Z here to get to somewhere. And there are other times where you go, well, no, I know I can't have a rational conversation with you because you're going to want to fight every point tooth and nail and all of these things, whether it's just completely uncommercial what you're talking about. So, yeah, no, I absolutely agree.
So the same thing happens with the ATO. I was actually asked this morning by an accountant, do you have a hotline? Do you have a direct line that you can call people? And I say, well, there are particular areas we speak to, and I can't ring up and ask for one person, but we speak to that person every single week, numerous times in the week. We build a rapport. We know that person. We're very civil. We're very courteous. Everyone's just doing their jobs. So over time, you do build a relationship. It's a working relationship. You're not asking them, same as you, you're not asking them to do anything they can't do, but because you have had those discussions, you know what the law is. We know what the law is. We know what the ATO can do. They know what they can do. And so those relationships, not that it's a direct hotline or we're asking for a favour, make a massive difference in getting clients the outcomes that they need.
Yeah, exactly right. Especially in your world where it is so compliance based, that is one of the things where you're assisting the ATO as well to make sure that they in the future hopefully don't have to chase these people up. They do have they can better resource themselves into other areas as well. So yeah, it really is that overall assistance package that everybody's trying to offer.
Yeah. If you have I'm going to say two tips. Normally I say
Yeah,
one, but I think for you, I want two
sure.
tips. One, if people are about or they're in this really difficult time at the moment and they're not sure whether they're going to get separated or they're not sure where to go, what they should do. And if they're in the throes and it's all just happened, what are your sort of two main tips for people that might be watching this in both of those circumstances right now?
So probably I'll start it from a different perspective. If you are considering separation, okay, so there hasn't been a major catalyst to that separation. It's just things have been tough for a while, and you are looking to separate. I think it's a really good time then to actually speak to a lawyer to get that initial advice about, hey, this is how sort of things can play out. In those sort of conferences where people haven't separated, they're wanting that initial advice. My advice to them is always, if you can resolve this yourselves, it is better on everybody. Come to the lawyers to help with the paperwork. Sometimes that is impossible due to power imbalances and all sorts of things, and access to information and finances and those type of things. But if people can sort of have those sensible conversations, be adults. At the end of the day, we are all adults, especially if you've got kids. It's so important to try and keep that civility for as long as possible to make sure the kids are shielded from a separation, because the last thing that anybody wants is for kids to be pawns in a separation. They need to be protected and looked after and cared for. So that's my advice in those things is, and I give them some pragmatic advice about obviously what the range of settlement might be or something like that in those initial sort of interviews. And then there's the second stage where there has been a major event, whether it is family violence or it is somebody's stolen money, drugs, alcohol, gambling, something like that, where there is like urgent action is required. And they're the more pressing ones where you obviously say, okay, now we actually have to go. We have to file an application in court for your safety or something like that, or to restrain somebody from doing something. So people in those emotional moments can make really bad decisions in an instant, which have all sorts of ongoing effects, whether that be they start drinking too much, they start coping with stress in negative ways, and especially the scourge of family violence that a lot of women have to endure is just horrendous. And one of the big things that I do with a lot of men is I try and educate them on what family violence actually is, and that it isn't just physical stuff. It's emotional, it's financial, it's psychological. There are lots of things that especially blokes don't quite understand still. So there is still that education piece, but it's just to make sure if people can stay as calm and civil and amicable as possible, it serves them 10 times over in the long run.
Thank you. My top tip is it's never too late. So even if you've got your financial settlement and then you've got a huge tax debt and don't know what to do with it, we can still absolutely help. For you, I'd also say it's never too late if people are in the middle of it, thought that it was going to be okay, haven't quite got lawyers, that help is still there. So to reach out, I say eat the frog, do the thing that's really hard, reach out. We are, it sounds like lawyers are scary, but we are all human. We're all here to help, and that's exactly why we're in the professions that we're in. It's why we've chosen to do what we've chosen to do.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've been through a separation myself. I've been a client to myself, so I actually am in a unique position where a lot of people are going, I actually understand what you're going through. It's one of the big selling points for me as a lawyer is, yep, I really do get it. Like, I've been there myself. I know how hard this time is for people in their lives. So, yeah, it is that thing not to be embarrassed about this, because more than 50% of people end up in separation these days, and I'd say more than 50% of businesses have some sort of bad tax debt or personal tax debt at the moment. So,
and it's no personal reflection.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, and it's been great to chat to you.
No worries at all. Thank you so much, Olga.